Welcome. We have Tresa Rivera today, who is a human design specialist and hypnotherapist. Tresa is certified hypnotherapist with the American Board of Hypnotherapy and a trained human design chart analyst. She's also a certified health coach, personal trainer, and life coach who specifically works with people on getting to know their human design, how it applies to their life, and utilizing hypnotherapy through this mind body practice, which we are so excited to have you today. I also have my co-host Lexi here today, which we will both be having plenty of questions for you, I'm sure.
Yes. Hi, Tressa.
Mhm.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you.
Absolutely. Well, we're so excited. And I think that as I say all of that intro, I think a lot of people might also just first initially want to know a little bit more about you. So we would love to learn a little bit how you came to hypnotherapy, how you came to learning and wanting to work with people through human design analysis. Just tell us a little bit more in our audience about you.
Okay, yeah, I would love to. So I have had a deep passion for athletics and the physical body for a very long time. So when I was in my 20s, I became a personal trainer. I worked at a chiropractor's office doing, physical therapy and personal training. Fast forward a few years, what do I want to do with my life? Oh, I think I want to be a life coach, health coach, and use my personal training background with it. So I was working with clients around weight loss and the physical body, health coaching, working with them through nutrition, and I was not seeing great results. And part of it is because we'd have a good coaching session and then they'd come back the next week and none of their goals were achieved. So around the same time, my sister actually was studying hypnosis, and she came to me and said, "Hey, can I practice on you?" And I thought, that's really dumb, right? I was like, I don't know anything about that. That sounds cheesy. All I had ever seen about it was like what you see on movies or at like sober grad night, like stage hypnosis. I was like, okay, this is so dumb, but I love you, and I'm gonna let you practice on me, right? Within 3 hypnotherapy sessions, I had healed more trauma and wounds than I had in 12 years of self-development. I was
That's incredible.
blown away
Love it.
at what is this? What is hypnosis? What is NLP? What is hypnotherapy? I started to get really curious. And so then I started to study it on my own and I learned a couple of NLP and hypnosis techniques and I started to take them back to my health coaching clients. And within a few weeks, I was seeing results in clients that I hadn't seen for weeks. They were losing weight, they were changing their behaviors. And what I started to realize is that so much of the reason the weight was being held on to them is because of their beliefs. It was because of suppressed emotions. And there's a lot of my own journey wrapped up in this as well. I had gotten pretty sick with my third baby. Hypnotherapy healed me so much. It was doing wonders for my clients, and I realized that every not everybody, but there's a lot of people doing personal training and health coaching, but there's not enough people really healing deep trauma. And my clients were holding on to the weight because of trauma. And so I kind of switched gears and I went and I got all of my necessary schooling and requirements to become a full on certified hypnotherapist. And I switched gears from weight loss and health coaching to hypnotherapy, where I could do the most amount of work. Now, kind of in that time frame, just as I had gotten all my credentials, I was starting my own business. I met my human design teacher, and I found human design. My sister, same sister actually. What is this? What is this chart? I looked it up. There's all these weird colors and boxes and numbers. I was like, what? So I called up Danny, and I had never met the man before. I said, I want you to read my chart, right? First chart reading I had with him, 2 hour phone call. I've never met this man before, and he told me things about myself that nobody has ever known about me. Things that I would never even say about myself. And I hung up that phone call and I thought there's something to human design. I don't know what this is, but I need this system. So I ended up going back to him for 4 separate chart readings before he was like, I was like, Danny, I'm going to go to human design school. And he said, maybe just let me put you through human design school. So that was 3 years ago. I've been in human design school for 3 years. I'm now a trained human design analyst, and I actually use human design to navigate my hypnotherapy sessions because without ever even meeting a person, I know so much in-depth information, not just about their personality, their emotional wounds, their conditioning, but about their physical body. And it's like this weird superpower that I have just by looking at their human design chart. And I believe that it is the future of coaching, working any type of practitioners. I believe that in the future, everybody is going to start to use the human design chart because it's just amazing.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing that like your personal journey is what actually led you to just follow those inner callings, if you will, and you just continued down your passions and your interests, which led you to this full-fledged business now that you help people with human design readings, getting to know themselves through their human design and hypnotherapy by healing trauma. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and your sister, like you guys, she brought you to hypnotherapy, and then is it right? You brought her to human design, or she brought you?
She brought me to, I'm the little sister, and
Okay.
but and before all of this, like I have been through my own fair share of trauma. I had been in self-development for about 12 years before I found. So I was always like, on that spiritual self-developmental path. And I wanted to be happy. And I got sick a couple of different times, including, like I said, with my middle child. And I actually had a 1 in a million disease
Wow.
in my pregnancy. It was horrific. And it
Wow.
was around that time that I thought, if I really know what I think I know when it comes to self-development and spirituality, I wouldn't have gotten sick.
That's really
So it
powerful.
was really humbling. It was really
Yeah.
like, okay, there's something I don't know. And that's when I stepped into like deep meditation. And that's when my sister was like, I'm dabbling in hypnosis, right? And so it not only helped me heal that disease, but it took me to where I am now. So,
I think it happens to probably more people than it should, but we are on a journey and we think we're on a journey. I mean, I'm personally relating to you here, so I don't want to speak for the crowd, but oftentimes we end up sick or we end up like something is wrong in our body and we just know intuitively that something is wrong or we're feeling physically ill, and that kind of takes us to that last step, and then there's a breakthrough. It's almost like a rock bottom, and then there's this magical breakthrough that happens.
yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I've also done hypnotherapy, not with Tressa, but I'm intrigued, and had, I mean, I've been doing talk therapy, like I've been doing these other practices to heal trauma from my own childhood, and hypnosis was so powerful. Like I felt incredibly different just right after.
Mm. Oh, and I can speak to that too. I actually worked with Tressa directly, which we'll have a second episode on directly about my experience working with Tressa, but also with my experience working through hypnotherapy as a tool because it was my first time. So we'll save all the juicy
I know.
details for that for the next episode, which I'm so excited to bring to everyone. But I can also speak to that too, where I was a little nervous, as Tressa I'm sure can and attest to. But it was such a transformational journey that now I told Tressa that is this too good to be true? Like, is there something I'm missing? Because I feel like what we worked through was so deep in ways that I've never been able to get before. And the outcome was like, yeah, I don't even think about that anymore. It's
Yes.
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more? Well, we're going to get into hypnotherapy later. I'm like, I almost want to dive in now, but let's start with human design. Like, what is human design for somebody who has no idea what it is? We'll just
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah, so on the surface, human design seems like any old personality typing system. So it gives you a type, it gives you a strategy, which is kind of like your game plan, how you're going to use it in real life. And then it gives you an inner authority, which essentially is a guidance system to help you always know what decision is correct for you to make. Now, the thing that's different about human design is that it's based off of four ancient systems. It's based off of Western astrology, the chakra system, aspects of the Jewish Kabbalah and the Chinese I Ching. Now, the Chinese I Ching is kind of a magical system.
I didn't even actually know all of that, and
Yeah.
now I'm even more intrigued.
Yeah.
So Tressa, I practice feng shui in my business. So you're
Mm,
talking about the I Ching, and
yeah.
I'm so excited. Keep going.
Well, you know what's interesting about the I Ching is that the I Ching is based off of a six-line hexagram structure. So there's 64 hexagrams in the Chinese I Ching. Well, when modern science discovered DNA and they started to, look into it, it turns out that the exact same mathematical structure, that the 64 codons in your DNA is the exact same structure as the 64 hexagrams in the Chinese I Ching.
Hmm.
So the thing about human design is that it's not just about your personality, it's about your genetics. It's a genetic coding system, it's a genetic blueprint, and it actually talks about the genetic expression within your physical body's energy systems. It's a map of who your body is designed to be and how it's designed to express itself. While there are set archetypal energies connected to these different codons in your DNA, which does express through personality, it's so much more than just your personality.
I find that so refreshing too, because I think, as often as Lexi and I talk about, our children being born and they are who they are since
Yeah.
the day that they were born, and we can really tie back this innateness to each individual. But I also find it so refreshing where I'm like, everyone should know their human design
Mhm.
because if you do, then you really know like what you were designed and what your gifts are to bring to the world. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that, or they struggle with really knowing themselves deeply. And so they spend years and years and years trying to do all these different things to get to know themselves deeper, to understand why am I here on this earth, all of these things. When really, if they started with understanding their human design deeply, they also might have a guidance point as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. One of the major philosophies, concepts around human design is that we're all raised homogenized. The society tells us that we are all the same. We all need the same amount of sleep, the same amount of food, do this, don't do this, get a job, go here. And the basic differences of who we are and what we're designed to be is lost, right? Our uniqueness is lost. And most grown-ups are so deeply conditioned to be something they're not. And that's where their dysfunctional patterns, behaviors, trauma, it all stems down to being raised as something you're not because our parents just didn't know.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't know. And there is like this general talk now. I don't know if it's more prevalent just because of social media and everything, but it's almost like our generation is healing that trauma or that conditioning that our parents didn't know any better. And we don't want to place blame on our parents or be like they did this wrong or whatever. It was just societal conditioning. And I think now we're headed into a phase as like the collective is wanting to heal that and to
Yeah.
do better by our children. And I find it so fascinating.
Yeah.
And I love that you've brought up these four different points of human design because some people, it's just like astrology is just, they can't relate to it, right? There's just different aspects that somebody might be like, don't put me in a box. I'm a Scorpio, but I don't sound anything like a Scorpio. So the human design, it's refreshing, like Jessica said, that we can have all these different pinpoints that kind of narrow us down. And there's so many factors at play other than just being a Scorpio. There's like so much more of the inner layers of human design chart. So
Mhm.
maybe you can dive into what some of those layers are.
Yeah, yeah. The biggest layer when it comes to human design is the juxtaposition between the personality and the design. I'm going to say this in another way. You have a mind and you have a body. And so often the mind believes it's the ruler of, the controller of the body. And even the way that we're raised as children, well, don't be an idiot. You got to think about that. Use your brain. Weigh the pros and the cons, right? And human design steps in and is like, actually, this vehicle, this body, This is a self-driving vehicle, and it was always designed with the wisdom to know what's right for you. And we see this in our children. We see this in our 1-year-olds and our 3-year-olds. When they're hungry, their bodies communicate that with us. When they're irritated, when they're sad, when they're happy, this expression that the body is free to give from the get-go is how we're designed. That's essentially what our inner authority is. And it kind of goes back to different points in the body for different people. But the whole principle of human design is release mental control and start to develop this inner guidance from the cells and the wisdom of your body.
Yeah, that's such an interesting philosophy too, because even coming from a healthcare background and a physical therapy background, we learned so much that the mind and the nervous system is controls the body, right? And so
Yeah.
I think it's often forgotten that the body also responds, and so they do work very in unison together. And we need both of them, but to not miss those cues that the body's trying to give you, because oftentimes, different emotions are stored in different parts of the body. And if we're nervous, we're feeling it like in our gut, if you will. And so oftentimes we forget to listen to those body cues. But if we were in tune more and understood our human design a little bit more, but also just got more connected to the body and the responses it gave us, it would be able to tell us a big story, really.
I mean, that
Yeah.
comes back to what we said at the beginning a little bit of your body getting sick and, if
Hmm.
you're ignoring a lot of the cues,
Mhm.
Yeah.
or maybe just like not even aware, it's not even ignoring, it's just you don't have that self-awareness perhaps. Um, yeah, then your body is like, all right, I'm sending up flare signals, like something is wrong and I got to get your attention.
Right? Hello, I'm talking to you over here. And the bodies, and even as adults, we see this everywhere. The body says, I am so tired. I just need to nap and rest. And the mind is like, you can't nap. We have to do this. And the body is like, oh, I'm so hungry. And the mind is like, we're on a diet. We read this book about keto. This is the correct thing for us. And the mind takes control, right? And you're exactly right. The body is sending out these flares. I love that. And the more the mind ignores the body and controls the body, the deeper into dysfunction we go. So human design is really all about how can we step out of patterns of dysfunction and into alignment with this magnificent vehicle that we live in.
Mhm. Before we move on to hypnotherapy too, I love there's a point you made that I want to bring back up, and it was talking about if we got to know our children. A lot of our listeners here are mothers or parents. And you said something really beautiful that now I'm like, okay, now I need to do human design reading from a parenting perspective to get to know my children and making sure that I am supporting them in the way that they were designed to be brought and to live out into this world. And so I think that's an extremely powerful tool that a lot of parents could use as that inner wisdom of knowing why and giving us that explanation of why our kids are so different. We raise them the exact same, but they're completely different children.
Yeah.
But also remembering and circling back to they are that way since they were been born. So now I'm like definitely going to do a human design reading with you in terms of parenting.
Yeah.
But before we really pivot to hypnotherapy, because I want to dive into that too, what are the next steps if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about their human design? What do you feel is the great next step for them to take just to start to get to know that chart a little bit better?
Uh-huh. There is amazing resources out there that you can go for free. My favorite website is mybodygraph.com. This is a sister site to Jovian Archive, in which the creator of Human Design, Ra Uruhu, that's his company. So Jovian Archive, mybodygraph.com, these are all sources of pure human design. I think there's a lot of spin-offs to human design right now that some people can get really caught up in. What you really want to do is understand your chart without the bells and whistles, just your chart, your strategy, your authority, your profile, your definition. So what most people do is they'll look at their chart, their brain goes, blah, I don't know what any of
Yeah.
this means. And so then a lot of people go down the Google rabbit hole, they'll go down the YouTube rabbit hole. What does it mean to be a projector? What does it mean to be a manifesting generator? And so on and so forth. But at some point, you are you're going to realize that this is all surface information. It's very generalized information. And if you really want to understand who you're designed to be, you have to go get a one-on-one analysis by a trained chart reader. That really is the way for you, because this is such a complex system and we go to school for it. And
Yeah.
so a lot of people, and we live in this society where it's like instant gratification. I want to know everything right now. And so they go down the Google rabbit hole. You're not really going to understand as much as you think you are. And so sometimes people will get their chart read from one person and then they'll go get a bunch of different perspectives, just because, as with anything, different analysts have their own spin and their own uniqueness to it. But that really is the best way to learn about yourself.
We'll be sure to put those links in the show notes for anybody who wants to go pull up their chart. And if you haven't looked at a human design chart before, once you get it, you'll realize why a one-on-one reading is probably great, because there's a lot going on in it. But if you want to give us just like the top level, you mentioned manifesting generator, projector, like what are those different profiles from like a high level perspective?
Yeah. So essentially in human design, there's 5 different types. And one of the types is the same aura. So there's really only 4. But I want you to look at this as if they're different vehicle models, right? They're
Okay.
each right. So we have this electromagnetic field around our body. Okay, let's break this down. Let's be really logical about this. The brain fires off of electricity. The neurons in our brain we have sodium and magnesium and potassium. These are electrolytes that flow through our body. We have a nervous system that is electrical. We have a heart that has a magnetic impulse and electricity running through it. So we have this electromagnetic field that extends out from our bodies about 3 feet in all directions. And if you were to go to a hospital with all the fancy equipment, they can measure that EM field, right? This is science. This is not woo, right? But in
I
human design, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm like geeking out over here because this is like the aura, right?
Yes,
You
this
can
is the
actually go to
aura.
a hospital and have your aura read, like somebody could show you what it looks like.
Well, they would be able to measure the electrical
Measure
pulse.
it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's really like down to physics and science, where I think so many
Mhm.
people are like, oh, that energy stuff is woo woo, but
Aura.
it's really like, no,
Sure.
this
Right.
is down to everyone, every living being, everything has energy.
I just
Um,
had to interject there. Sorry, keep going
Yeah,
because I'm just
yeah,
so
yeah.
excited.
Yeah, anything that is electromagnetic has an EM field around it, including humans. And so each aura, electromagnetic field, in other words, has different properties to it. And when we're looking about type, we're looking at the differences in the properties to your electromagnetic field as it surrounds you, right? So there essentially is 4 different auras, 4 different vehicle models. One of them is broken up into 2 because there's some fundamental differences. I like to think about it like this: life is just a play, and we are all partaking in this beautiful play called life. And in the play, about 70% of the people are actors, the stars of the show. This is the generators and the manifesting generators. They're designed to work, they're designed to labor, they're designed to have a lot of energy, they're designed to put the world together and build the world, right? Now, and there's differences, right? Because some actors are script readers. They're really going to go step by step and read the script. These are pure generators. And then you have actors that are kind of like improv actors, and they're quirky and creative and their brains work really fast. These are manifesting generators. Both of them are designed to have a lot of energy when they do what they want to do. Now, in this scenario, in the movie, in the play, 20% of the population are projectors. Now, look at these like the directors of the play. These are our guides. This is what Jessica is.
yeah, I was just gonna say
I
I'm a
love dancing.
projector. That's what I'm doing, a
Yes.
little shoulder dance. What
Yes.
are you, Lexi?
I'm
Yes.
a generator.
Okay, and
Yeah.
this is why we work beautifully together, actually.
Yes, yes, there is a very beautiful symbiotic relationship between the projector and the generator. And projectors see things that other types don't, but they don't have the energy system as a generator. And so, as the generator invites the projector and the projector asks the generator questions, both of you unlock what it is that you need in order to grow into the highest potential of yourselves.
We should do a
That's
reading
amazing.
together with Tresa.
Yeah.
That'd be so fun.
I,
Anyways,
I
that's
actually,
amazing.
I've actually done that for business partners a few
Okay.
times in the
That's cool.
past.
All right. Well, we'll
Um,
after the episode.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So kind of moving along, 9% of the population are manifestors. And imagine the manifestor like the screenwriter. They're kind of black sheeps. They initiate their whole goal is, or I guess purpose is to impact and initiate. Think about somebody like William Shakespeare and think about a play like Romeo and Juliet. That one play impacted the entire world for generations and generations. And so manifestors are misunderstood, they're unique, they're not like other types, but when they do something, they impact everyone around them. And the last type we have is reflectors. Reflectors are only 1% of the population. They're kind of shapeshifters. They're literal mirrors. And so when you're with a reflector, they sample your energy and they take on your attributes and different personality traits, and they reflect you back to you. And they show you your blind spots. And sometimes you like it and sometimes you don't, but they tell you the truth of who you are in that way. And so the reflectors, like the movie critic, they're the audience, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
Interesting,
that's
because I'm like trying to think of who might be a reflector in my life, but I bet I could
there's only
almost
1%.
predict it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, reflectors are designed to be inconsistent. So the telltale sign of knowing what a reflector is, they change every single day. They're going to be so, I will give my life for this thing one day, and then the next day they could care less about it because that's how they're designed. And so they change from person to person, from day to day. And they're magnificent. They're magical beings. I adore my reflector friends.
That's interesting. You said
Yeah.
1%.
1% of the
I
population.
didn't catch that, so just told me
Yeah.
that. So yeah.
It would make sense if you can't remember or might not know of someone who is a reflector because they're such few and far between.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
manifestors and manifesting generators make up 70%, you mentioned, right?
Generators and manifesting
you go.
generators. Yeah. So if the word generator is in it, they're a generator type and they have the same aura and the same strategy. And so, yeah.
But then there's more layers beneath that, right? Like,
Yes.
so I'm a generator, and just coming back to like some things that I'm trying to work on personally is like, oh, I'm lumped into like the biggest percentage, and I feel
Yeah.
like I'm really unique and special, but there is so much more uniqueness once you take back that first layer, right? Like we talked about it.
Correct.
Top layer is these different types, like a generator, reflector.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Well,
then you
yeah.
can actually dive so much deeper into each person's chart. What would be like the next layer without getting too detailed or too specific?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I go there, I want to let you know that Oprah's a generator. Einstein is a generator. Elon Musk is a manifesting generator.
Extremely unique people like Lexi.
Extremely intelligent and brilliant and unique and insightful people. And so sometimes people step into human design and they're like, oh, I'm not unique. But in reality, every chart is like a snowflake. So you have your type, and then you have your inner authority. Generators and manifesting generators have one of two different inner authorities. And then you have your profile. Profile is like an outfit that you wear throughout your life. And then you have your incarnation cross, which are the 4 gates that make up your sun on earth, both on personality and design time. And then you have all of the gates that are in your planetary alignments on both your personality and design. And then those gates are in specific lines. And then those gates and lines are in specific centers. And then those centers are either defined or undefined. And then you either have the channel on the other side or you don't, and so on. and so forth. And that's just the top of the chart. There's an advanced system called primary healthcare that goes into environment and digestion and viewpoint, and it's
This
a
is why a one-on-one
massive
session
amount,
is so beneficial, right?
massive amount of information. Yeah, everybody is deeply unique.
And although, like a projector, for example, may have similar characteristics and traits to another projector, that when you get into their individual one-on-one chart, they can still be deeply different, which is where that
Right. Right.
uniqueness comes into.
Correct.
That's so amazing and so fascinating.
Okay, so I know there's so much more that we could dive into with like all of these things you just mentioned. Is there something in the chart where if somebody just does, they spit out a free report online and it says like one part of their chart that they can read that we could actually talk about? Like I know there's part that's like, for me, it's inner vision, like what part of the chart is that?
Yeah, and so that's the advanced system
Okay.
that is looking into color and tone in your variables. And while it can be beneficial to learn that you have inner vision, if you don't understand the top of your chart, that information is not going to do you very much.
Okay.
You
Okay.
see what
So
I'm
the
saying?
next layer
Yeah.
maybe then that somebody could just do an online, they're like, oh, I'm a generator. And then
Yeah.
next up, they can read one more piece of their chart before diving into a one-on-one that could be beneficial for them to learn without diving also into like a million Google articles, right?
Yeah, so this is why I recommend that website, mybodygraph.com, because it's actually a talking body graph. So when you input your information, it will spit out and give you the ability to play different clips of Ra Uru Hu, the creator of human design, talking about what it means to be a generator, what it means to have a sacral authority, what it means to have a 2-4 profile, what it means, right? So you can have this, and that's what I recommend to all of my clients. I say, if you're not ready to get a reading, go hear about it from the man's mouth himself. And always the most accurate information comes from the creator of human design.
Love it. Love it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that tangible tip that people can
Yeah.
just take and run with as well. Okay, so we have you for a little bit more time actually today. We have a sweet spot here. Are you okay on time for us?
I am okay. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
okay on time.
perfect. Love it. Just wanted to double check. But I would love to pivot now, unless you have any other questions about human design.
Well, I'm sure there are a million questions.
We could probably talk to you for hours about human design, but we probably should just get a reading from you.
Yeah, well, let's pose it back to you. So if you had like any tips or takeaways or one more thing that you wanted to offer at this kind of high level podcast view, what would that be to our listeners?
Yeah, well, now the human design system is an experiment. Don't take my word for anything.
Sure.
Experiment with it. Take your strategy and authority, do it, use it. That's what I did in the beginning. The moment I got my first reading, I said, I'm going to step into my human design experiment and I'm going to follow my strategy and authority today. And that led me to all sorts of messed up beliefs and patterns and dysfunctions I didn't even know weren't good for me. I had no idea. Now, this is where hypnotherapy comes in. So it's kind of a really good place to kind of start talking about hypnotherapy, because what I see in my clients over and over and over is they get their chart read or they start to learn about human design and they try to follow their strategy and authority. But your belief structure creates and determines your behavioral patterns. And if you
Can you repeat
have,
that?
yeah.
I think repeat that.
Your
That's an
belief
important thing to hear.
structure, yeah, your belief structure creates and determines your habits. So if you don't believe something, you're not going to act in a certain way. Or if you believe something else, right? What another way of saying it? Yeah. Your behaviors are dependent upon your beliefs. And so many people they find the human design system, they see the discrepancies, they see it resonates with them. They see this version of themselves that they could be. But because they have all sorts of beliefs that tell them they can't be that way, they shouldn't be that way, they're wrong if they're that way. And guess what's connecting these beliefs like scar tissue in the unconscious mind? Emotions. Guilt, shame, fear, sadness, right? And going back to the physical body and how it holds on to emotion. And going back to babies, look at babies. When they feel sad, they cry. When they feel angry, they scream. Emotions are meant to be expressed and moved through the body. But when the mind does not allow the body to properly express these emotions, or the mind is underdeveloped and it doesn't know how to express emotions, we suppress them. And this is when we get into deeply suppressed emotional wounds and patterns of beliefs that are created around these deeply suppressed emotions. And all of a sudden we're adults and we try to change our behavior and we can't, because these beliefs are binding us to dysfunction.
Actual scar tissue.
Actual metaphorical scar tissue.
Yeah. That's where hypnosis comes into play, right? Like, explain hypnosis. I think we all kind of know a little bit about it, but there's also like societal, you even to your sister were like, hypnosis, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like that's so dumb. Yeah.
But then once you experience it, it is like a rewiring, right, of the brain a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm a deeply logical person. Before I could even step into the idea of learning more about becoming a hypnotherapist, I had to understand what was happening. And the easiest way to think about it is that the way that the brain cycles through its natural frequencies every single day. So we have this natural rhythm within our brain waves. When we sleep, our brains are really slow, they're in delta. And as we rise in the morning, we rise up through theta very briefly, and then we are awake and we're in beta, and our brains are kind of buzzing and they're working and our brain waves are faster. And this is how we talk and this is how we communicate. This is the analytical mind. This is the conscious awareness. If you were to look at me in the face right now and tell me my hair is blue, my analytical mind would be like, no, it's not, right? Like there's this filter on top of the analytical mind. When we are stressed out, our brain goes into high beta and it starts to move really fast and it starts to focus and hone in to threats in our environment. Now, when we come home after a long day of work and we sit down to relax, within 90 seconds, the brainwave starts to fall from high beta to alpha. And as we get into a state of relaxation, the brainwaves slow down. And this is where most of the work I do is in. This is where a lot of people go when they go to meditate. Now, once you're relaxed and your brainwaves are continuing to fall, you're getting ready to go to bed, you lay down to go to sleep, and you see these pictures right before you go to sleep as the brainwaves fall. This is theta. Theta is a place that we go to in deep meditation. Theta is the brainwaves are really slow. And then we fall and we go to sleep and we're back into delta. Now, there is a certain brainwave called gamma where people can go to when they're in high meditation. It's actually deeper than beta, but this is a state of bliss and a state of ecstasy. This is a state beyond the analytical mind. But when we're looking at hypnotherapy, let's look at this from the perspective of being a child, because this is where so many wounds are created. Children, babies think in theta. Babies are born and they only oscillate between delta and theta, right?
That's so powerful.
Babies. Isn't that wild? And as the child grows into a toddler and a little kid, they start to be able to think in alpha. But they don't have a conscious mind. They don't have an analytical mind. They do not start thinking in beta, the analytical mind, until the ages of 7 and 12. So I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but your conscious mind is not developed until between the ages of 7 and 12.
I've heard this like 0 to 7 so many times in different information that I've absorbed, where it's like, it's almost a little terrifying as a parent who is still learning how to parent the way that I want to, and to do things a little bit differently than my parents, or the same as my parents, and things that I enjoyed that they did. But my daughter is 5, she's almost 6, and I am still deeply in a self-development journey. And I look back on some of her other years where I'm like, oh no, did I already like put these things on her? It's kind of terrifying, but at the same time, like I can totally see how these different patterns develop because, you know, they're also like little parrots. And it's if you're acting a certain way, or even if you're putting out a certain energy, they very much respond to it and mirror it back to you.
Yeah, that's right. Remember what the analytical mind is. It's that filter, right? You're not going to tell me my hair is blue. I'm not going to listen to that, right? But before the analytical mind is created, before the age of 7, just like what you said, they're parrots. So everything that they see and hear goes into them as fact. They only have a subconscious mind. And so your model of reality that you hold right now as an adult was all created before the age of 7. And there is wiggle room really by the age of 12. And this is what Dr. Joe Dispenza says. He's one of my favorite teachers. He's a leading neuroscientist. He says that there's room to change between the ages of 7 and 12. And so you look at all of these adults and it's like, wow, that dysfunctional pattern can go back down maybe to not what your mother said to you, but what your mother thought herself. The model of reality that she taught you through example, through default. You see what I'm saying?
I do. And I think about those, you know, like even funny commercials where it's like they become a parent and they're like realizing while they're doing some kind of thing around the house, they're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what my mom did. I turned into my father. Like,
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
it's deeply ingrained in you.
Yes. Yeah. You would be amazed. Most of the sessions I work with, we regress to childhood, or we do childhood inner child work at some point. Okay, so let's talk about hypnotherapy, right? Because where am I going with all of this? I'm going somewhere really cool, I promise you. Now, a lot of people they work through talk therapy, they work through coaching. They're using their analytical mind. Let's figure this out. Let's really think about this, right? Let's go back. Well, maybe this happened because of this reason. That's what the analytical mind does. It's very structured. It's very, there's a lot of reason within it, right? It's strategic. Now, those wounds were created when you were in your subconscious mind thinking. So when we work through hypnotherapy, we induce a trance, meaning I use my voice to take you into a deeply relaxed state. And even as I'm doing it right now, even the listeners, you can feel yourself hanging on to the words that I'm saying, and I'm actually pulling your brain waves lower and lower. So once we are in a state of alpha, I practice conversational hypnotherapy, meaning all of my clients are speaking back to me. Now, the unconscious mind, and we're in the same brain frequencies as when your problems were created. So all of a sudden, this doorway is open to so many memories and wounds and emotions that your analytical mind just doesn't have access to. And when we're looking at the way the unconscious mind speaks, think about dreams. It's metaphoric, it's symbolic, right? There's all sorts of, think about somebody saying, I've just hit a wall, right? Oh, I've just got a pit in my stomach. This is a deep metaphor. You told me something so much by telling me you hit a wall. The analytical mind could use thousands of words to talk about what that metaphor means, while the unconscious mind uses this one tiny little picture. And so it's deeply efficient in a couple of senses. First of all, we're using a different way to communicate. Some of my clients, they don't know what the problem is. Their emotions are so deeply suppressed, there's not even a word for how they're feeling. That's okay. I'm not a talk therapist. You don't need to use your words. Tell me a picture. What is it like? Where in your body are you feeling this feeling, right? Some of my clients have been through such deep traumatic experiences that talking about it is more painful. I'm not going to make them relive their trauma by telling me it with it, right? And so we get this efficient way of healing because, first of all, we're not talking in the same way. Second of all, your brain waves are in a place of deep abstractness. And we're working in this world of the unconscious mind. One of my clients said once, she's like, it's accelerated healing. I just did 6 months worth of therapy in 2 hours with you.
I
Right?
really believe that though, because you're able to tap into the mind at a very different level versus talk therapy. And I'm sure we'll go into this more, but like I've practiced talk therapy, and also comparing it to hypnotherapy, it was just so different. But it's amazing to see that that's why it's so efficient at getting to the root of some of these traumas that you're talking about, because you're accessing the trauma in a very different way than other modalities to heal trauma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've done talk therapy for a few years now, and I found it wonderfully helpful. She actually is the one that referred me to a hypnotherapist because she thought it could take me deeper into my healing journey.
Yeah.
And I did one session, and after talking to you, I'm like, I'm gonna do a lot more.
Yeah.
But I went back to her after, and I was like, it almost felt like cheating. But that's just the way my mind is. It's like I've been putting in so much work, and then it's like I did a 1.5 hour or 1 hour session, and I was like, the next morning, I couldn't believe how different I felt. And I actually see that session as one of the more pivotal moments in my life where I made a change in terms of like I was focusing on self-love and self-acceptance, and I am a good mother. Like those were things that I was working on in that session, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
That's why I emailed Tressa after our session too, where I'm like, is this too good to be true? Like, I'm a skeptic. What's going on here? Like, why was all of that deep rooted stuff that like was a very quick answer for me? What is the biggest thing that you struggle with? And, for me, it was self-worth. And so for me, I like called that out. And it was so easy that that was the first thing that I would always say if I always asked myself, what is my deepest struggle or what is my deepest insecurity? But then literally after one session with Tressa, I was like, I don't even know why I would say that. Like it was such a weird transformation that I tried to put myself in similar scenarios where I'd ask myself, like, write down your deepest insecurity really quick. And self-worth was not even on the table. Like I didn't even think about it in just one session. So now we're like really, going to be leading into this next podcast episode of diving deeper into my personal session with you, Tressa. But this idea that bringing human design and hypnotherapy together is a really beautiful missed art. Can you tell us a little bit more about why? Like, why would we bring human design and hypnotherapy together? You talked, to the specifics and the intricacies of getting to know someone on their deepest level through human design and what they were created to do and how they were meant to be here and to live out their truth in the world, if you will. But then utilizing human design to break down those beliefs and that conditioning that was maybe put on themselves. Am I understanding you correctly? I mean, I went through
Yeah.
this process, but I would love to hear it from you even.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, going back to something that Dr. Joe Dispenza says all the time, your brain is a record of the past. That's all it is. And most people create their future reality from the prediction of what they lived in the past. And so we're all kind of throwing in front of us the same messed up patterns because of what we know. It's known. Now, the reason I combine the two, first of all, in human design is all about deconditioning, but it talks about deconditioning at a cellular level. Your cells have memories, and every 7 years, you get a brand new body with brand new cells, right? At a cellular level, hypnotherapy, it can't create new cells. You're going to have to wait out your cellular. But from an emotional and mental standpoint, it's the beliefs that tie you to past patterns. And once you start to disconnect, like for you, Jess, I disconnected self-worth, perhaps the cells of your body are going to be used to overworking, and you're going to have to practice taking rest because you're a projector, but it's not going to be connected to, I have to work because I have to prove my worth for what I can do for other people. There's a
100%.
big difference, right? Big difference. And so what I always say is that hypnotherapy, I look at it past, present, and future. Who am I today? Where have I come from? And where do I want to go? And if you're tired of going in the same places and you don't know how to get out of that, we start by healing the past through hypnotherapy. Once you heal the past through hypnotherapy, then you can start looking at your human design chart and really understand, who am I designed to be, so that you can create your future from a place of alignment and intention.
That's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, you said it earlier, looking for like an easy answer or like a quick tip that I can take on with me to manifest my dreams, but really like when the change happens is when you heal the hard, like the past. When you can heal what you have been through is when you can change the cycle, the loop, and
Yeah.
take a new path
Yeah.
that you want.
That's exactly right. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, the work you do is beautiful, and I've just really enjoyed chatting with you. I know you and Jess have a relationship previous to this, but I loved our discussion, and yeah, I just feel like so pumped up about this podcast and about having you as a guest because you spoke so many truths that we just want to share. Like that's our mission,
Yeah.
is just to share it. And thank you for being here. If anybody wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, so check out Instagram. That's the platform that I am on. I put out really helpful information for all types in human design, and I got some, silly reels and stuff like that too. So at human design hypnotherapy, and there is underscores, which I'm sure you guys, that human underscore design underscore hypnotherapy. You'll find it.
Yeah,
You'll figure it
we'll
out.
link you in the
Yeah.
show notes so anybody can find you.
And anyone can do a human design, an analyst reading with you, as
Yes.
well as hypnotherapy session, or even combined too, which I think is extremely powerful. So I found it powerful. We'll dive into my experience with working with you on the next episode. So for all the viewers who found this interesting, that want to know the intricacies of my life and what I worked through on an intimate level with Tresa, and my experience working with her, I'm really excited to dive into that for the next episode. But in the meantime, yeah, please go check her out on Insta and follow her along and set up your own session for sure.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, I'm excited to talk about your session too, Jess, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tresa.
Mhm.